Welcome back to the Amazon clone. In this video, we'll be setting up the front end and we're going to concentrate on building out the UI for the registration and login. So we're building some forms there. So I'm just going to start off by creating a new React app. So I can run npx create-react-app and I'm going to call the folder Amazon. And I'm going to have a template here because we want to use TypeScript. So we can say template is equal to TypeScript. And that will go ahead and will build out the React project for us. And that's in the root of our Amazon clone directory. So we have a separation between the API and the Amazon folder there. So you can also we can see that we've got this command here, --template TypeScript. There's also a command --template space Redux TypeScript. And what that will do is it will set up all the boilerplate for Redux. I personally think it's a little bit too much there. There's a whole counter examples and there's about 10 files it generates. And if you're just setting up a Redux structure from the beginning, it's better off just to introduce it step by step. But we'll be doing that in the next videos. In this video, I just wanted to concentrate on getting the project running. And it's just about to load here. So just to mention, we'll be focusing on the registration and login forms on the UI side of things. And then we'll eventually refactor it a little bit, make it a little cleaner, more like an enterprise app. And then we'll be implementing the Redux structure using Redux Toolkit and the modern way to go about doing that. So you might, the folder structure might look a little different if you're just coming from just React and you're getting introduced to Redux. And also if you've used Redux in the past, we're going to be doing it in the modern way. So if I just open up this Amazon folder here, you can see that it's just generated a regular React app and it's just going to have a couple of TypeScript configuration files in addition. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clear a few of these files here. I'm just going to delete this app test file here. I'm going to CD into the Amazon project, just so I'm in the front end of the project here. And I'm just going to clear a few things. So I can just get rid of this app CSS file, for example. We'll just keep that index CSS there just from the very, very basic styling there. But if I open up the app TSX, I'm going to get rid of the logo as well. And I can even get rid of the React import because it'll be able to auto detect. So that means I'll just delete this SVG here. We don't need that either. So we can pretty much just take all of the code and just go ahead and clear that. So we've got a nice starting point for our application here. I'm just going to go ahead and save that. So before I bring up the project, I'm going to just install a few of the dependencies that we'll be using. So I'm going to run npm install and I want to get the React router DOM package, and that also comes with the React router. So if we just open up the package JSON here, we see that we got React router DOM and there should be a reference to React router as well. So we can just go ahead and close that up. Actually, I'll just leave it open because we'll install something else. I also want to just install Material UI just to make it easier to create some components quickly. So we can npm install at MUI/material. That's the main library, but it also uses a couple of libraries under the hood. So we'll just go in and we'll bring in @emotion/react and @emotion/styled. And we'll also bring in @MUI the icons material in case we want to use any of the materials later on. Any of the icons later on, sorry. So I'll just go ahead and install those for now. And then we'll go ahead and we'll start working on a very basic theme. So in the root of the folder, in the project structure, I want to create a folder in source here, and I'm going to call this shared. And we're going to have shared components on here later on and shared models and all those sorts of things. But for now, I want to also embed the utils into here. So I'll create a folder called utils. And then I'll just go ahead and I'll create a file in utils. And I'm just going to call that theme.ts. And what I'll do is, oh, this is taking a while to install. But I'm just going to go ahead and I'll import create theme. And this is coming from at MUI/material/styles. And that will allow me to create a theme. Now I'm only going to create a very basic theme here, just because I want to use, the Amazon colors. There's orange as the main color I want to use as the primary color. And I don't want to go into details about how to do things like light mode, dark mode, or getting more advanced in the details of the theming and doing customization and stuff. If you are interested in that sort of stuff, I've done that. It was the very first video I did in my Next.js coding blog, but it also covers the React Material UI fundamentals to do that. So if you want to do that, check that out. But for here, I'm just going to create a very basic custom theme, just so I could get away from those standard, the Material UI, the standard blue colors, or the ones that come with it. Just want to get a couple of colors. And you can do that by using the create theme and by passing in some options here. And then you can just define a palette, so a color palette. Now I'm just going to have primary here. And in the primary, I'm just going to specify the main color. And this is just going to be the FF9900. And that's what Amazon uses. It's just orange. And then some contrast text. And I'll just make that 00000, which is black. Now there's more options you can have here other than just main and contrast. You can have like a lighter tone, a darker tone, all these sorts of things. Now we're just going to specify the primary and the secondary colors. And I'll just make the secondary color black. So 000, 000. And then the contrast text for that, I'll just copy that in there and we'll make that white. So we'll make that the FFF. And I'm just going to bring this in from /styles here. So now that we've set up the basic theming, and by the way, if you're wondering why there's not other things like errors and all that, warning and all those other colors and all the different varieties of colors within them, I'm just doing a super quick overview just to get it going. But you could add those in. Otherwise, we'll just use the default. Like we'll see the error by default is going to be the red color, for example. But we've got that theme there. We can go ahead and we can just close this file up. And we can just go to our app folder, or our app file, I should say. And we'll just make sure that everything's working okay. So just around this here, we'll just put this in brackets here. And we'll just have a theme provider, which is coming from MUI material. And that allows us to have a variable here, which is theme. And that's just the object we created with the create theme method. So if we just bring in theme here like that, we might need to just import it from wherever we got it from. So let's just go ahead and import this. And we'll import theme. And it's in the shared utils theme. So it's getting some good intelligence for that. I'll just close this up. And I'll just say something like hi here. And if all is well and good, it just shouldn't error. So if I just run an npm start, this should be working okay. And we can see that it's loading up here. Now there's nothing really going to be on the page or anything like that. So I'll just do a F12 to open up the browser tools, make sure there's no errors or anything like that. It's taken a long time today, but there we go. We've got the hi text there. So what I want to start off by doing is just creating some very basic pages. So I'm going to start off by, in the source folder, having a folder called pages. Now the structure of this may change as we implement Redux, because we might be doing things by feature rather than this approach, but just to get the ball rolling and not over engineer too early, I'm just going to go ahead and I'll create a pages folder, and then I'll call the component home.page.tsx. Okay, I realize I've made a folder there, so I need to retype that. But in the pages, I'm going to have home.page. I like to just suffix it with the page or component to distinguish what it is. That's probably more of a Angular sort of convention there, but I can just go ifce, get my component, and now it's got to remember to do a Control D, find and replace, whatever, to call this the home.page. And I can go ahead and save that. I can even get rid of the React import. So I'm going to do the same thing for the register page. And I'll just create a sign in page. And I'll just go ahead and just copy that. So this is the sign in page. I'll just make it lowercase, I suppose. That's the register page. So I'll put that in the sign in page. And then this one here, I'll just make the register page. And then we can use React Router to route to the right pages. So in our theme here, we can just return back to our app here. And we can just say, okay, we want to import a few things. So let's go ahead and import, and we'll do this right at the top because it's one of the most important imports. So React Router version 6 is what we're using. And we can get the browser router from React Router DOM. And we'll just rename the browser router to router. And we'll also import routes and also route. So we need all of these. And what we need to do is we just need to tell our application that we're using the router. So that's the router component that we need to wrap our routes in. And then we need a block to specify that we got routes. So multiple routes or even a singular route. And then we can just go ahead and actually write out the route. So the route, that should be a self-closing tag. So I'll just do this, for example. And I'll just get the home page. So I'm just going to import those files. So I'm going to import the home page. I'm going to import the register page. And I'm also going to import the sign in page. So for the route, if we want to go to the home page, we need to refer to the component that we want to go to, and we do that with this element property here. And then we actually pass in the actual component in here. And that's just a self-closing tag there. Now I'm also going to have 2 more routes. And we'll come back to this doing like fallback routes and all of those sorts of things. I really want to focus on like the React Redux TypeScript part of this to initially get going in the structure of things. And then also more on the payment gateway side of things. But, you know, as we go through, we'll make things nicer and tidier. So if we hit the sign in route, I want to take them to the sign in page. I might just flip the order here to have it in the same order as the imports. And I'll have a route for the register page as well. So that's all we really need here in the app. So let's just go ahead and test that those pages are working. So we see on the home page that works. Then if we go to sign in, we get the sign in page there. And then if we go to register, we get the register page there. So we'll begin working on the register page. And what I'll actually do is I'll create a layout because there's going to be some shared styling between the register and the sign in pages. So just here in the Amazon front end project we got going here in the source folder, I'm going to add a folder, and I'm sort of doing this preemptively, but I'm going to call it features. And inside the features, so if you're not familiar with like features or anything like that, it's basically organizing the code by feature. So for example, the authentication stuff could be a feature. And then, you know, the shop page or the home page, that could be its own feature area sort of thing. And you separate the logic in little bundles like that. So I've got, and it's also used in the Redux as the primary example. Of course, you can reorganize and re-architect your project. I'll go through the most, you know, common approach, I suppose. So inside the features, I'm going to have a folder and I'm going to call it auth. And inside the auth, I'm going to have a folder here. And I'm going to call this auth layout.tsx. And if I open auth layout, oh, that's the second time I've done that. But if I create a file here called auth layout.tsx, this is where I can get the shared files that I'll use in both the registration form and the sign-in form. So I am going to run REFCE, get the React Arrow functional export. I'm going to get rid of this React import. By the way, previously I was running _REFCE, but I think there was an update to the JSX snippets package, so I wasn't getting that, which removed the React import. But what I'll do here is I'm just going to import grid, and grid is going to come from @MUI/material, and then we have this auth layout, and this is going to be like wrapping our register component and our sign in component. So basically I want to take everything. I want to take all the children, and I'll just call this any for now. We'll come back to that type. So what we'll do is we'll return a grid, and in public here, I'm going to need to bring in a particular file, and that's the Amazon logo. So I'm just going to copy that Amazon logo in here, and then I'll just close these out. So we can see that we've got this Amazon-logo.png here. So I'm just going to reference that image. So Amazon-logo.png, and that's in the public folder, so we can just reference it like that. And then I'll just call it what it is in the accessibility alt tag here. And I'm just going to give it a specific height of 40 pixels. And that should scale it in the width direction as well. And then in our main tag here, we'll just render the children here. So we're just wrapping the whole component that we're about to create. And we will output it there. So I just made a slight tweak here, and I just, rather than reference the whole object to React Node, the object I'm referring to inside the object, I reference to the React Node type there. So yeah, we got this auth layout component. So in our, for example, our register page, we should be able to wrap our, we should be able to use that. So let's say we have the auth layout here, and then we just save that. And we can see that we've got the logo, and then we've got this here as well. So that's really cool. So let me return back to the auth layout and just have some properties here. So I'm just going to put a bit of padding here. So I'll have a padding of 2, and I believe that's 2 units in the standard units. So it might be, I don't know what that is, like 16 pixels or whatever it is. You have to look into the documentation, but it's not 2 pixels. This is going to be a container grid, and all these properties you can find on Material UI documentation. I'm going to have a direction here, and I'm going to make it a column because it's a row by default, but I want the image and the main elements to stack on top of one another. I'm going to have a justify content here equal to flex start. So that means in the direction of, so for example, the column in the y-axis, I suppose, if you're looking at the screen, that's going to be the main axis. So then flex start brings all the content up to the top of the page, but we want to align it against its secondary axis. So on the x-axis, if you're looking at the page, and we just want to center things there. So let's just go ahead and save that. And we can see that we've centered things horizontally, and vertically we got it right at the top of the page here. So that's our auth layout component that we'll use. And we can actually wrap our sign-in page in the same sort of way as we did here. So I might just go ahead and copy this in here at the top. And then also copy the component here. And this is just the sign-in page. So as you can see, on the register, we got this layout here, and then we also got this shared layout for the sign-in page as well. So let's return to the register page. We'll work on that. So just here, this is the page, and I want to keep the page quite lean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another component, and I'm going to create that in the features, in the auth. So right now we got auth layout. I'm actually going to move this into a new folder called components, because there's going to be other areas within auth. So I'm just going to bring that in there, and I'm going to click yes here, and I'll update the imports for us. So I just need to save those 2 files that we used. Register page, auth layout. So yeah, we can see that it's working again. And the reason I created the components folder is I want to have a different component for the registration. Now I'm not going to get carried away refactoring things too much and having super reusable components. I'm just going to write it out, but I will separate it from the page into a component. We may or may not come back to the refactoring of things. Again, I wanted to focus on the Redux structure and all that sort of stuff. So I'll leave that as an exercise to the viewer. But if I just open up the Amazon clone here, I go to the components here, and I'll create a new file. I'm going to call this the registration form.component.tsx. I'll start off by doing the RAFCE, and I'll just change this to the registration form component. And then in our registration page, I'll just close sign in for now. I'll use that component. So the registration form component here, close that up. Actually, it will just be a self-closing tag. So I can just do that. And if I just refresh the page, we get this registration form component here. So that just separates the logic out from pages. We may move this around a little bit. We're going to restructure things when we bring Redux in a little bit. But just for now, just to keep it slightly cleaner here. So with that, I can pretty much just close the registration page up now. And I can go to the registration form component. So I'm not going to import React, but I can just import FC for the functional component type. And I'm just going to bring in preemptively the form event type. And we'll see why in a moment. So I'm going to call this the functional component, give it the type of that. And what I'm going to do, when you go to a form, you notice that everything you fill out is an input, and each input has its own state. So like it could error, or it could change, or you could click focus, or you click blur, or you might want to clear it. And there's 5 bits of state essentially for each input field. And we're going to have multiple of these input fields like name, email, password, confirm password. And that'll just mean having like 20 bits of state we'll be managing. So for complex state management, rather than using use state or something like use ref or something like that, what we'll do is we'll actually use reducer. And it's actually going to tie in really nicely to the Redux stuff. So if you're not familiar with the use reducer hook, it's just it pretty much combines. It's a way to use the use state hook, but more efficiently for more complex data. But in doing this, it's going to set us up to understand the Redux and the Redux patterns and stuff like that. And in saying all of that, I'm going to create a custom hook in the next video for the input, because it's something that we'll use very often, and it'll just declutter our whole application and simplify things, and simultaneously help us move to the Redux structure that we're working towards. So I was just mentioning that because at the top of the component is usually where you would have things like use state or something like that. I'm going to set that sort of stuff up in the next video. So that's going to be a cool one in terms of writing clean, reusable code. And also take a look at custom hooks if you haven't checked that out already. But with that said, I really want to just focus on the UI in this video. So I'm going to just work on it. So I'm going to have a box here, for example, and I'm going to need to import that. I'm going to have some other imports from Material UI as well. So the box, this is going to be the container, basically. So I want to have a little border on my box. And we'll just use the 1 unit there. I'm going to put some padding inside of the box. So you can imagine a form, there's just a border around the form. That's all we're doing here. We're just specifying the dimensions and the spacing of the box. Now I'm just going to have a border color here. Again, you could set up the theming more elegantly, but I'm not going to do that. So you can just type in CCC to get the light gray color there. And I'm just going to hard code the width of 350 pixels. I believe most smartphones are around 400 pixels these days with the newer phones, or even iPhone 6, I think it's 375 pixels. So it should be decent enough on mobile. Again, we're not focusing so much on the styling, being super responsive or like, refactoring everything to the cleanest components or anything like that. The focus is on the sort of the folder structure, introducing Redux in the new way, and also the payment gateway sort of stuff. And those topics are a little more advanced than some of the previous things. But if anything's bothering you, I'll leave that as an exercise to the viewer. Obviously, there's only so much time, and I want to get into the cool stuff. So, yeah, feel free to send a PR or whatever. I'm just going to have some margin top here of 2 units here. And then inside here, inside the box, I'm going to have a form. Oh, not a for loop, but a form. I'll just write it out manually. So inside the form, let me just put hi here just for now, just to see what's going on here. And as you can see, we've got the beginnings of our box here. So we want to have a couple of input fields going on here. So I'm just going to actually use inside the form here, I'm going to use grid from Material UI. And I'll just import that. I'm also, while I'm here, I may as well just get all the Material UI imports that I'll use. So box and grid are the two main ones, but then there's also the text field, which is also a significant element. I'm going to have an input label. I'm going to have typography. I'm going to have button, and I'm also going to have a divider here. So just to get those up front. So if I come back to the styling here, I'm going to make this grid a container. And I'm just going to have a direction, and by default that's row, so I want to make it a column. So each of the child elements of this grid are stacked on top of each other, and that's what we want. So, and then I'm also just going to have a justify content, and I'm going to set that equal to flex start, just so everything's left aligned. So justify content, because it's a column, it puts everything to the left. So inside our grid, I'm just going to have a little bit of typography here, just to name the entire form that we're working with. And this is going to be the create account. And I'm just going to give it a variant here of H4, but it's going to look like a H4 in terms of size, but it's going to have the impact of a H1, so the crawlers can treat it as such for SEO purposes. And as you can see, we've got the create account there. So now what I'm going to do is just create our first input field and label corresponding to that. So let me just put a bit of space here just to separate the sections out. So first I'll get the text field. And actually a text field is a self-closing tag, because we can define all of the properties on it without any children being nested in there. So the text field, now the first field is going to be typing in your name. So we're going to have a type here. We'll have that as text. And okay, so I'll have a name here. And that's just going to be equal to name. And we're going to have an ID equal to the string of a name here. We'll also, I'm not going to put the value in because I'm going to set that up in the next video, like the actual, a custom input hook to do it nicely. And I'm also not going to have things here like on change, on blur, error, and I'm not going to have helper text either at the moment, but I just want to get the layout right. So I'm just going to say this is outlined, and we'll come back to this, of course, in the next video. And I just want it to be small. And with that, we can have the corresponding input label. And nest it in here. Well, firstly, we can have a little bit of styling here. So we can use SX equals curly bracket, curly bracket. I just want to make the font weight a little darker than it usually is. And I just want to put a bit of margin top there. So I'll just use the one default unit there. And I also just want to make the color a little darker as well. So I'm just going to use the 000. Again, you could refer to our theme and import that and get those variables there. Again, I'm just going to keep this nice and simple. So that's the styling property there. We also can just specify the HTML4. And this is for the ID here, which is a name here. And that just bundles that little bit of, those blocks there together. So we got that there like that. Oh, and I forgot to type in the text in between the tags here. So you can just have your name or whatever you want there. And then we can see we got that. And you can see that it's orange when you click on it. That's the Amazon colors there that we set up in the custom theming. So the primary color, you could tweak that to whatever colors you like. Now what we're going to do, rather than, as I was saying earlier, you could put this in its own component here, input, and really simplify this. And I would encourage you to do that as an exercise. But again, it's more of a basic concept. I want to focus on more advanced concepts. And plus, if you refactor it right now, we're going to change things a little bit in the next video. So just be wary of over optimizing too early. But if you find after the next video or next couple of videos that it's really bugging you having heavy code here, like I usually like to keep the code base and components super lean and refactor this into other components. If I'm building work at enterprise or side projects and stuff like that. But again, it's something simple. I don't want to focus too much on those simple things there. So I'm just going to, but of course if it bothers you, please go ahead. So I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate that. And what I'll have for this second one is, rather than name here, I'm just going to go email, email. Actually, I might just make this email here. So we can refer to it like that. And I'll copy this down again twice. So you can see the duplication here, but feel free to refactor into its own component. Probably after the next video though, because we're going to be doing those custom hook stuff. But this field here, this is going to be password. So, and I'll just make this an uppercase P here. Now on the password, I'm also going to have a placeholder equal to minimum 6 characters required, and we'll set the validation stuff up in the next video. So that's okay there. And finally, we're going to have the password. Wait, wrong block. The password here, minimum. So this one here, I'm going to set that to confirm password. And then I'm just going to change this text here to re-enter password. So let's see where we're at with things. We'll just save that. And we can see that we've already got this form going here. And we've got this nice orange outline of the border. Got this helper text here and all the fields we want. Now we'd probably want a button. So let's create a button. And a button that's another component you could make more reusable. All I'm going to do when I go between the registration and the sign-in form is just copy the file essentially and delete a few things. So you can see how you could want to go down the rabbit hole of putting everything into cleaner components and smaller components. Again, not the focus. So let's just create a button here. And it's inside the form. And that should be an N. And I'm going to have something that says register. And what I'll do is, since we have a button, and I think we have the type equal to submit. It means if we go up to our form here, this is where we can have the on submit here. So on submit, this is what I want to do, is I want to call an on submit handler. Now you don't actually have to pass anything there to it. But what this will do is, so we'll do this here. Right now I won't do anything other than, well, firstly it's going to take the event, which is a form event, and that's what I brought in earlier. And it's going to be of the type HTML form element. And then, like all forms on single page applications, we just want to say, what's going on there? E. I'm going to press escape so it doesn't autocomplete. Then dot prevent default here. And this has to be a constant variable. I didn't do the arrow function syntax, so we'll have that there like that. And you can do things like if, this is where we can have some error checking, but we might do that in the next video, thinking about it. So what we'll do here is we'll just say console.log clicked. And that's all will be there for now. We'll return back to that. But let's just click on it to make sure that it's firing. And we can see that we got click there. So we just hooked up our form to this input, this submit button here. So let's just continue to work on the styling. We want to have a variant here equal to contained. And we just want to have some style here. I'm going to say the margin top is going to be 16 pixels, just to give it a little bit of space. Give it a height of 31 pixels. That's very specific. I went to the Amazon website and just hovered over it. Might not be precisely that, but that's what the styles were indicating without diving deep into the CSS. I'm going to have this like, let's just change my keyboard. I'm I'm going to have this color here. Again, you could put this in the theming and reference it like that, but I'm just going to do it this easy way here. I'm going to get the color, just set the color to black, the border color. I'm going to make it like a goldy sort of thing. It'll be barely noticeable, but just when I was looking at the color for the other one, I just picked that up there, so I might as well just copy that over while I was doing it, sort of thing. So this is actually going to be multiple colors referenced here. 7E31, I believe. And they're all the orangey, goldy, sort of yellowy sort of colors. 4, 6, 8, 2, 9. And then finally, I'll have a text transform equal to none. So by default, these buttons, they uppercase your text. I just want to preserve the casing there. So as you can see, we've got this button here. Might not be clear, but there's a outline there that's similar in colors, and the functionality is triggering the click event. So that is the styling for this part of the form. There's also like a little bit below this part, just some extra stuff here. So that's going to be below the form. So here, I'm just going to have a div here, and it's still inside the box, so it's still inside the border there. So still inside here, but it's not relating to the form fields. It's outside there. So it's just going to be, UI related stuff mainly. But what I'll do is I'll have a style here, and I'll just give it a bit of margin top to separate it from the form above. And I'll just eyeball this at 30 pixels. And then I'm going to have a small tag in here. And then I'm going to have a span. And I'm just going to type in the text. By creating an account, you agree to Amazon. And then I'll have that in one div here because I want that on one line. And it just so happens the text works out with the width that I set up there. I'll just put this here like this. And then I'll have another div here. And I actually might start off by duplicating this. And I'll get rid of this margin top because it's going to be related text. But what I'll have is I'll have rather than this at all, actually, I'll have a tag with a href, and it's just going to point to hash. And this is just for styling purposes. So I can have the style here, and I set the text decoration to none. And then I'm going to just have a space here. And I'm going to say conditions of use. And then I'm just going to have another space here. And then another space again. And then I'll have another a tag here. And the a tag will have a href pointing to hash. So obviously the hrefs aren't ideal, but I'm not actually going to build out the links and go to them or anything like that. I'm trying to just focus on the core features here. Text decoration, otherwise I'll be building Amazon for years. And I'll set that to none. And then I'll just go ahead and I'll type in here privacy policy. So let's get that there. Let's take a look. And then you can see here, you got this thing here. Obviously, if you click the link, nothing's going to happen, but it looks like it works. So now I'm going to have a little bit more of this sort of stuff going on. I'm going to have a divider, and that's a self actually, yeah, that's going to be a self-closing tag. And again, you could refactor this stuff into a component as we're going to use in the next area. But again, I'm just going to copy the page. So just keep that in mind. So we'll just give this a bit of styling here. Margin top, 36 pixels. Margin bottom, 36 pixels. And if I just create this last bit of code here, maybe I'll start off with something like this here. So we've got a div. Rather than this a tag at all, I'll just say in the small tag, I'll just say already have an account, because we want to link back to the other page. So this is where we'll have a link tag. And that's coming from React Router DOM. And I'm just going to call this the sign in. So where this is going to go to is the sign in route. And I'll just give it a little bit of styling here. Give it a text decoration of none. It doesn't have the underline. And a color, I'll just set to like that same blue color that you get on those A links. So that's actually 0000 EE, so a variation of a blue. Small. And I think that's okay. So let's just see that. So already have an account, sign in. Click sign in, it takes you to the sign in page. Awesome. And then finally, there's just a little bit more of this filler sort of stuff. So I'll just put that in here as well. And the good news is we can copy most of this for the sign in page. So it's going to be a lot quicker there. So, all right, let's just say here, buying for work. We have this href, text decoration of none. I'm just going to have here, create a free business account. And then I'll get rid of this here. And I'll save that. And boom, we've got our Amazon registration form there. So what I want to do, or the UI of it at least, what I want to do is pretty much duplicate the code and do it in sign in. Again, not the best practice. You'd want to refactor these into its own components and stuff like that. But you know, in the interest of time and getting to the good stuff, I'm just going to copy that through. So let's just go ahead and create a file. And I'm going to call this the sign in form .component here, or TSX. I'm just going to start off by copying this whole form here. And then rather than calling it the registration form component, I'm going to call it the sign in form component, as the name of the file indicates as well. So that's that bit there. Now I just need to go get out of the home page, but go to the sign in page. And if you look at the register page, we just see that we reference that component there. So if I just get the sign in, actually it should still be in my buffer. So if I get the sign in form component here, and then I go ahead and import that. That should be all good there. And then when I look at the page, I click on the sign in button here, and it takes me to sign in. It looks the same, so I'm just going to clear some of the stuff up. So let's think about the stuff we want to clear up. So we want to get rid of name because they'll just log in with their email. So let's get rid of this here. Let's change the name of the page from, sign in from create account to sign in. So we'll leave that email there. That's good. And then we'll also leave the password there. That's good. We'll get rid of the confirm password. We don't need that here. When they sign in, they only need the email and password. Now I'm just going to have this button here, leave it there, put in a known component if you want. So let's look at it. It's going to be basically the same thing, but it's going to be sign in here. So you'll do this if you're making a component out of it. You're doing the same way we did the layout component, where you just have the component and then pass in the children or whatever, and then you can just pass in text here or even more sophisticated stuff there. So I'll leave that as an exercise. So let's just see where we got to with that. Actually, yeah, let's have a look here. So we got the sign in here. We got these two fields. It's still teed up to the submit handler thing. But we just want to, rather than by creating account, we just want to change the text a little bit here. So we can say by continuing, you agree to Amazon's, and then all the same stuff as before, conditions of use and privacy policy. Now, rather than having this, let's see, where are we? Rather than doing things in here, we'll have it outside of the box there. So let's see here. Where's the box? We'll just get rid of this bit here, for example. And since we're doing this, I'm just going to press Control X to keep it in my buffer. But we're going to create a one of these, so we can have more than one element. The fragment, that's right, just a mental blank there. Now this divider, we won't, let's see, we'll get rid of the styling of it. And we'll nest it in a div. We'll save that. And then on the div, what we'll do is we'll say style equals margin top, just so we have a div element that we're able to, or a block element that we're able to put the styling on. This will just be a regular divider here. Then I'm just going to have divider. Oh, is it like that? So we'll have that there. Then we'll have a small tag here. And I'm just going to say new to Amazon. And then on there, I'll just give it a little bit of styling here. Give it a color. And I'll just choose 767676. And actually, I'll put all this in the divider. So I'll have something like this here. So we'll have that. That should be okay, I believe. So we have this here like that. Yeah, I can't think of why that wouldn't be working. Let me just comment it out, comment back in. I've had some VS Code's been a little slow. Okay, so there's something wrong, I suppose. Do I have the divider? I do. Oh, I did the closing tag wrong. Okay, all good. I should be able to save that now. So if I save that, you can see this new to Amazon divider here. And then below the divider, I'm just going to have a link. So I'll just keep this link here. And I'm just going to say, go to the register page. The text decoration can be the same, but I'm going to have a button in here instead. So if I just go back over to this button I created over here, actually it's going to be slightly different, but I can use it as a good starting point. Again, you could refactor this into its own component, like some of the other stuff as well, but it's going to be contained. Since it's outside of the box, we're going to need to specify the width. So I will set the width to 100%, which should be the 350 pixels. Margin top, we'll just reduce that to 12 pixels. Height should be the same. The background color is different on the other page. So I'll just set that to a light gray or a gray. The text can be black. The border color doesn't really matter. I think it will be black by default. Put a comma here. Text transform none. So yeah. Actually, I think this doesn't have to be type submit. This can be, we probably just not even have the type. So, because it's outside the form, and we just got a link here. So yeah, awesome. That's pretty much what I wanted to work on today. So just to have a quick look at it, you see we've got these nice fields here. We can type in whatever. What we need to work on here is if you type in something like A and then click off it, we want to do some validation to make sure it's an email, make sure the name's, more than one character, make sure the passwords are the same and at least 6 characters. And because there's all those states with like focus, blur, submitting the form, all those sorts of things, we're going to refactor each input field into, we're going to use a custom hook, like a use input hook to use all that logic there, combine all that logic, and we're going to use the reducer inside there, and it's going to work really nicely because that's the fundamental knowledge we need to work with Redux. So it's going to be a stepping stone approach, but it's going to be valuable. And you can see we built the UI, but there's no, we need to make the API call obviously and have some error handling and stuff like that. So that's the creating account. And obviously when you sign in, we need it to, generate the JSON web token that was set up on the back end. And then we sort of want to manage the state in Redux and all that sort of stuff. But as you can see, it's a really good start. New to Amazon, click on that. Just maybe want to register, takes us back over here. So if you like the video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and we'll work on those topics in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Cheers.